What's the key to marrying a best friend, being with a best mate?
I just think marry your best friend. I think the key is marry your best friend.
What if the most surprising drama in Hollywood right now has nothing to do with who's landing the next superhero role, or which star has the biggest box office draw, but instead revolves around hidden feuds, hurt egos, and sensational lawsuits? Imagine three successful power players suddenly clashing in a saga so complicated that industry insiders can't decide if it's a straightforward grudge match or something far more sinister. We're talking about Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, and Justin Baldoni. You might recognize their faces from red carpets and blockbuster premieres, but the headlines swirling around them these days paint a far darker, more complex picture than anything you've seen on screen. From hush-hush accusations to explosive lawsuits worth hundreds of millions of dollars, these three celebrities have become entwined in a tangled web of rumors, legal filings, and jaw-dropping claims. Claims that include allegations of sabotage, defamation, and behind-the-scenes meddling on a level few ever get to witness. But was it really about settling personal scores? Or did an ambitious film project provoke a power struggle that shook each star to the core? Today, we're peeling back the glossy facade to uncover how Reynolds, Lively, and Baldoni went from admired darlings of Hollywood to bitter adversaries in an unfolding legal and public relations storm. Buckle up, because this isn't just about one film or a few heated words. It's about money, influence, trust, and the raw ambition that simmers beneath the most elite circles of Tinseltown. Even if you don't follow celebrity gossip, you've likely seen Ryan Reynolds in everything from offbeat superhero flicks to comedic adventures that rake in millions. He's often praised for his sharp wit and unwavering charm, both on camera and in interviews. Blake Lively, on the other hand, made her name in youth-centered dramas before blossoming into a charismatic leading lady. She's known not just for her roles, but for her ability to command attention on social media and brand partnerships, always looking poised, stylish, and unflappable in front of flashing cameras. Then there's Justin Baldoni. In many ways, he's the wild card here. While certainly no newcomer, he's been acting for years. Baldoni gained traction by actively promoting positive masculinity, hosting candid podcasts, and even giving a widely viewed talk about his own journey in life. To those who only know him from red carpets or heartfelt Instagram posts, his focus on uplifting stories and mental well-being made him seem like the least likely candidate for any vicious Hollywood brawl. Yet fate, or maybe just an unfortunate crossing of paths, led these three down a volatile road. When Baldoni's production company, Wayfarer Studios, pursued adapting the best-selling novel It Ends With Us, there was talk of fresh directions, new partnerships, and the possibility of star-studded collaborations. Behind the scenes, though rumors brewed, A-listers like Reynolds and Lively were circling projects that would dominate the public conversation. People began asking, were these two dynamic personalities about to team up with Baldoni, or might they become obstacles? In a place like Hollywood, where alliances shift overnight, nothing is ever guaranteed. Friends close to the situation whispered that conflict was inevitable, but few anticipated the scale of the meltdown on the horizon. Tensions involving everything from creative control to rumored backdoor dealings started creeping into industry chatter. But was it harmless rivalry, just a case of big names jockeying for position, or the first rumble of a coming earthquake? When talk of trouble emerged, it surfaced in the form of small, disjointed clues. One day, a talent agent who usually never speaks out publicly dropped a cryptic hint. Not everyone's playing nice this time. Another day, a journalist hinted that Ryan Reynolds privately voiced a strong dislike for Baldoni, going so far as to brand him a predator. The term rang alarm bells. Baldoni, famous for championing respectful behavior and conscious relationships, suddenly found himself the subject of an incendiary accusation, one that, if believed, could annihilate a person's reputation. At first, no one could pinpoint the origin or motive behind that incendiary label. Had Baldoni done something to anger Reynolds? Or could it be a twisting of words, a misunderstanding? Hollywood is rife with gossip. Someone overhears an offhand joke or a snippet of conversation, and it snowballs into a scandal. Yet if this was simply rumor run amok, why did so many well-connected insiders feel confident that Reynolds was genuinely trying to tarnish Baldoni's credibility? As the rumor mill churned, separate stories about Blake Lively also began to surface. Publicly known for her composure, she was alleged to have lodged her own private grievances about the production environment on It Ends With Us. Some reports claim she felt uncomfortable or disrespected, prompting her to rework scenes or demand changes behind the scenes. Yet the actual details remained murky. No one knew for sure if Baldoni had truly crossed lines, or if Lively herself was leveraging power to reshape the film. At the same time, fans on social media noticed something peculiar. Odd references started popping up in Reynolds' comedic work that felt suspiciously like jabs at Baldoni. People pointed out a cameo called Nice Fool, a too close for comfort mockery, especially if you knew Baldoni's positive online persona. Was Reynolds mocking him? Or was it all just coincidence? For many, the confusion only fueled curiosity, prodding them to dig for more. In typical Hollywood fashion, representatives on both sides tried to spin the story. One camp insisted there was no real drama and that everyone is fine. The other side hinted that the worst was yet to come, quietly suggesting that bigger revelations would soon blow the rumor game wide open. Whispers turned into formal complaints, and by the time official lawsuits were filed, the public found themselves standing at the threshold of one of the costliest and most shocking legal sagas in recent memory. In bold letters, Justin Baldoni and his Wayfarer colleagues alleged that Reynolds, Lively, and some of their close associates engaged in smear tactics, sabotage, and even extortion. The numbers thrown around $100 million for $100 million were staggering, enough to make even jaded executives pause. Lawyers for Reynolds fired back with a motion to dismiss, insisting the claims were groundless, but the document's own wording left observers stunned. While dismissing the accusations, the motion also seemed to confirm that Reynolds did express deep disdain for Baldoni, describing him in terms so heated they sounded fueled by personal animosity rather than thoughtful concern. Critics latched onto the contradictory nature of the legal response, part denial, part rationalization, and part admission of intense personal feelings. People asked if Reynolds understood how it all looked from the outside. Did he realize how normal it sounded, at least to some, for a powerful star to attempt to block or hinder a rival by planting destructive rumors? Meanwhile, Baldoni's team insisted they had evidence, documents, testimonies, and possibly even recordings that would show who said what, when. The public had no way to verify those claims, but the tension escalated. Some neutral bystanders questioned whether the entire fiasco had mutated into a personal vendetta, overshadowing the real question of professional wrongdoing. Was it only about revenge and fear that a rising talent like Baldoni might overshadow them in the future? The motion to dismiss became a watershed moment, forcing everyone in Hollywood to pick a side, or at least form an opinion. Could it all blow over with an out-of-court settlement, or would a judge eventually examine every sordid detail in a public trial? Insiders continued leaking tidbits to the press, fueling a media fire. Would the disclosures strengthen Baldoni's stance or prove Reynolds correct? Regardless, one thing was certain: the entire industry was glued to this story, bracing for the next phase. Originally, It Ends With Us was positioned as an emotionally gripping adaptation of a best-selling novel dealing with love, heartbreak, and generational cycles of violence. Fans anticipated a careful, respectful approach to sensitive themes. Early on, it was rumored Baldoni and his team wanted to involve domestic violence advocacy groups, aiming to boost awareness around intimate partner issues. However, as filming went on, observers noticed the marketing started looking puzzlingly lighthearted, almost comedic. In interviews, Lively described the story in ways that barely touched the serious core. Vague hints about relationships and personal triumph replaced any direct reference to heavier subject matter. Repeatedly, she and the team seemed to sidestep acknowledging the topic of domestic violence, which baffled many fans who had read the book and expected a more sober tone. TikTok creators, who had helped elevate the novel in the first place, began calling out the marketing. Why was the film's trailer focusing on airy romance, dreamy montages, and cheery songs? Where was the gravity? Then came baffling comments by Lively, captured on camera, insisting the movie isn't about domestic violence at all, though the novel clearly tackled that issue front and center. Some critics believe this was evidence of a deliberate whitewashing of the storyline, presumably to make the movie more commercial. Baldoni remained relatively quiet in public, fueling speculation that friction on set might have stripped him of some control. Others believed Lively and possibly Ryan Reynolds had meddled with the creative vision, effectively downplaying or removing major themes. Was it a deliberate erasure for box office appeal, or simple creative differences? To complicate matters further, members of the cast reported mixed experiences. Some claimed it was a dream set, while others spoke about behind-the-scenes drama that left them exhausted and confused. A handful of personal stories trickled out, arguments about script changes, tears shed over last-minute demands, and whispered friction between Lively and the production executives. By the time the film was ready for release, the atmosphere surrounding it was strangely sour, making people wonder if the final product would honor the novel at all. Add a swirl of lawsuits into the mix, and you had a ticking time bomb of corporate tension, personal grievance, and battered reputations. As tension escalated, many began questioning just how involved Blake Lively was in everything. Conventional wisdom once pegged her as the lighter counterpart to Reynolds' clever humor, or the stylish actress known for perky on-set presence. But court filings suggested otherwise, painting Lively as an assertive figure who might have orchestrated media narratives, shaped scenes to her liking, and backed Reynolds in labeling Baldoni a wrongdoer. Some accounts described her as the driving force behind certain marketing angles, allegedly instructing publicists to highlight comedic aspects of the film while ignoring the heavy undertones. Critics contended that by ignoring the story's central conflicts, Lively made it appear like a breezy romance. This bizarre mismatch of tone outraged a portion of the fan base, who felt it trivialized the significance of domestic violence. Then came the rumor that Lively had confronted Baldoni personally over alleged inappropriate conduct, whether on set or in script discussions, triggering Reynolds' fury. Yet details remained contradictory. Certain longtime crew members spoke fondly of Baldoni's professionalism, insisting they'd never seen him cross any lines. Others, closer to Lively, hinted there might have been insults or uninvited remarks, fueling her anger. The result was a swirl of questions. Was Lively valiantly protecting herself from someone she believed overstepped boundaries? Or had she simply found a convenient scapegoat to blame for the unsteady rollout of a complicated film? Meanwhile, Lively's lawsuits aimed not just at Baldoni, but at affiliated people, claiming they orchestrated a smear campaign against her. She alleged they slandered her to the press to cover up their own issues. Yet many outside observers asked, why would Baldoni sabotage the very film he was invested in, a project he'd been passionately championing for years? If anything, it seemed more likely Baldoni's success, and the potential success of the film, would be beneficial to him, not something he'd want to demolish. But Lively doubled down, insisting a retaliatory campaign was at play, punishing her for taking a stand. Eventually, one underlying question surfaced across social media. Could Lively have inadvertently inflamed tensions by mixing personal beliefs, brand building, and genuine concerns into a single explosive cocktail? The answer remained unclear. Yet her role in this saga was no longer that of a passive co-star. She became a central figure, one just as scrutinized as her husband or her alleged rival. More than a few observers speculated that Ryan Reynolds, known for cunning PR strategies, might have gone too far this time, entangling personal emotion with a well-honed flair for marketing spin. With so many references swirling, accusations of calling Baldoni a predator, comedic cameo jabs like "nice fool," and repeated insistences that it was all somehow protected speech, one had to wonder if Reynolds had quietly recognized Baldoni as a legitimate threat. After all, Baldoni owned production rights to the sequel It Starts With Us and other potential blockbusters. If Baldoni's star rose too quickly, might that overshadow the next big Reynolds Lively project? Another angle floated. Perhaps Reynolds was genuinely convinced that Baldoni disrespected or harassed Lively. If so, in his eyes, sabotage might not be sabotage at all. It might be a crusade against someone he believed was harmful. Yet if those convictions were anchored in misunderstanding or misrepresented facts, the damage inflicted would still be enormous. Then you had the distinct possibility of jealousy, something not unheard of in Hollywood's upper tiers. In a realm where everyone competes for accolades, critical praise, and box office domination, an actor-director with a blossoming reputation can be seen as an obstacle. Was Reynolds simply ensuring he and Lively remain front and center, preventing Baldoni from becoming a new industry guy? Publicly, Reynolds' attorneys hammered home the point that he had every right to express deep disdain. They labeled the statements an expression of opinion, not fact, insisting any talk of defamation was baseless. But the defensive tone of these motions, combined with the glimpses of genuine anger in the language, gave the impression of a deeper personal vendetta. Even casual fans found themselves comparing the cheerful, quippy persona they admired in interviews to the abrupt, borderline ferocious approach described in legal documents. Could both be true? Reynolds as the wisecracking, philanthropic celebrity, and Reynolds as a fiercely protective husband who overreacts when threatened, fans were left to debate which version reflected reality. The only certainty was that the scope of this conflict had grown beyond gossip rags, evolving into a high-stakes war of words with reputations and fortunes at risk. At the end of the day, we're left wondering whether the entire situation grew from a misunderstanding that spun out of control, or if we're witnessing a meticulously crafted war waged by two mega celebrities against a rising competitor. The lawsuits, the accusations, the swirling talk of multi-million-dollar payoffs. It all reads like something scripted for the big screen. Yet these real humans stand to lose livelihoods, reputations, and possibly their ability to work on future projects untainted by scandal. Some insiders quietly suggest all three sides might eventually settle to avoid a public courtroom showdown where internal emails, text messages, and behind-closed-doors confessions could spill onto the record for the world to scrutinize. Others predict that at least one party has gone too far, wanting an all-out legal brawl to clear their name. If that all-out confrontation happens, the revelations could reshape how fans see not just Reynolds, Lively, and Baldoni, but also the entire entertainment machine they operate in. For those who follow Hollywood for escapism, this fiasco is a stark reminder that behind glitz and glamour lie real people, real agendas, and sometimes cutthroat maneuvers. For those who crave a dramatic storyline, it's a cautionary tale illustrating what happens when personal, professional, and legal boundaries collide. The price tag on this conflict, a rumored $100 million or more, seems almost incomprehensible. Yet perhaps the bigger cost is trust. Trust that once lost in such a scandal may never be regained. In a matter of weeks or months, we might see major updates. A newly filed affidavit rocking fans with secret admissions, a dramatic hearing that reveals hidden details, or a hush-hush agreement that makes the entire matter vanish from headlines. But the seeds of doubt and controversy will likely linger for a long time. Viewers might never watch a Ryan Reynolds flick or a Blake Lively interview without recalling how savage Hollywood power struggles can become. They might never look at Justin Baldoni without remembering how quickly someone's well-crafted image can become the subject of brutal speculation.